Looks like Katy pawned the backdrop again. Got to go buy it back after this. It's super not valuable. Anyway, hello, my sweet baby news oysters. Open up your ear shell so that I might deliver sweet news onto your precious pearl brains. Use those little orbs to like and subscribe to this channel if you can. Also, sorry for implying you have small brains. It was a sacrifice the metaphor demanded. An insulting, unnecessary sacrifice. A lost little lamb encircled by bloodthirsty pagans and jackals, the mocking knife plunging deep into its heart for all to see as they point and laugh and bathe in the crimson slaughter. Anyway, you guys see that Dave Rubin Surrounded video? It was wild. Like, we've never done a Dave Rubin's wrong about X episode or whatever, because whatever. But one day, we should finally do an entire episode about Dave Rubin's whole sad deal and how back in May, he went on Jubilee Surrounded and got his ass completely handed to him. And you know, about what that means or whatever. Maybe next time. Also, here's some news. Dave Rubin went on Surrounded and got his ass completely handed to him, and here's what that means or whatever. Oh, so weird. Okay, so turns out I have free will, and this show can be whatever we want it to be. Interesting development. I should actually write that down. You have free will. Question mark. Winky face. Toilet emoji. Okay, so some context. YouTube is a video platforming site devoted to Minecraft speedruns and word pronunciation tutorials that occasionally has this political debate show called Surrounded. That's kind of a fart show. We've mentioned it before, but it has helped degrade political discourse about serious topics into a series of clips shared on TikTok or whatever the kids are into now. Oh, good. Still TikTok. Also, Surrounded makes people run to a chair in the middle of the room for the opportunity to debate, which I'm unclear on how that relates to their knowledge of a topic. Like how that Carmen Sandiego show made geography nerds lug giant stanchions around a large map as if that's gonna be on the Penn State entrance exam. Also, I guess it's hosted or moderated. I want to say haunted by some guy named John Regalado, who kind of looks like the Backrooms version of Matthew McConaughey. But this is not really about Surrounded, the fart show, but rather Dave Rubin, the fart host of The Rubin Report, and a gay, self-described, free-thinking classical liberal whose biggest claim to fame is that he left the left. His reasoning being that progressives, they're mean now.
Banning speakers whose opinions you don't agree with from college campuses, that's not progressive. Prohibiting any words not approved of as politically correct, that's not progressive. Putting trigger warnings on books, movies, music, anything that might offend people, that's not progressive either. All of this has led me to believe that much of the left is no longer progressive, but regressive.
Yeah, the left is intolerant and rude, unlike my favorite president, the biggest prick on planet Earth. Therefore, Dave Rubin changed his entire fundamental political beliefs. It's like that tweet that guy did. You know that guy. Who was that guy? Me? Oh. It's like that me tweet that guy did. Anyway, that's his obligatory PragerU video they all do as a little hazing ritual before taking the allegiance oath. Can't be sure, but I've heard it involves a giant wicker statue of Dick Cheney and a smaller wicker statue of that guy Dick Cheney shot in the face, and then who apologized to Dick Cheney for it. And perhaps this is not the best Dennis Prager clip we can use to actually explain why Dave Rubin left the left. Let's try this one on instead.
I want you to continue to say you're a liberal because you're of great use to good values.
Well, don't worry, I'm not doing it for your use of me. I'm doing it for myself.
No. It's like Christians who say to me, you know, oh, we would love you to come to Christ, but you are so valuable to us as a Jew when you defend us Christians. Yeah. And they're right. You are valuable in the best sense of the word because America needs people who are clearly liberal and to be honest, and fall into the category of kosher as gay, to say, hey, hello, the conservatives are not hate mongers. Hello, they should be heard. And maybe every so often you should read National Review.
Right.
There it is. Better clip. Dave Rubin is a useful tool for the right wing in order to spread their propaganda, making him more valuable to say he's on the left than if he actually stayed on the left. I have to reiterate that point that Dennis Prager told Dave Rubin to his face on camera that he's a useful tool of moneyed interests for the purposes of spreading right-wing propaganda. It's like when I play basketball with those elementary school kids. Everyone wants Cody on their team. Boy, can't imagine why Dave made that switch. Anyway, as the title mentioned, Dave got super duper wrecked during this nearly 2-hour-long surrounded video, to the point that it's literally the first thing you see when you watch the video.
You're arguing that things economically were better under Joe Biden.
At the end of his administration, absolutely.
Yeah. So can you give me an example of how?
Yeah, GDP growth was better off. Real median wage growth is better off. Inflation was better off at the end of his administration. Unemployment was better off at the end of his administration. We had the worst year of job growth in the past 4 years, just this last year under Trump's administration.
It was really very hilariously not good. To explain how not good it was, Piers Morgan, who's had Dave on his show several times and is like friendly with him, put out a video about it titled "Dumbest Man in Right-Wing Media."
Well, reviews of the episode have not been kind. Conservative pundit Dave Rubin, branded a complete imbecile, reported the UK's independent newspaper. MAGA host mocked after failing to name any of Trump's achievements, said the Daily Beast. Commentator Mehdi Hassan declared it's official. Dave Rubin is the dumbest man in right-wing media. Glenn Greenwald, meanwhile, said it's not news that Dave Rubin is one of the dumbest people in media, a theme developing there.
Piers Morgan! That guy once had a fight with pants! Now, to be fair about all of this, the cards were stacked against Dave from the start. The entire premise of this video is one MAGA Republican versus 20 far-left Democrats, which, first of all, bad job surrounded, boo, I throw cabbage, etc. Like a clear and obvious sign that this show has no interest in honest political conversation is that they pick really basic black versus white debates that aren't actually productive, encourage bad faith actors, and lack any nuance. Again, I reiterate my boo. But my actual point is that, as it stands, MAGA is not doing great in terms of likability or competence or maintaining a small body of water or the whole not being evil situation. Trump is unpopular right now. And so MAGA shouldn't be debating anybody. It's like if the mime jerking off on the bus yelled that it's not polite to stare. Mimes can't talk. How dare they break the illusion? So Rubin is, I guess to his credit, picking a really big disadvantage from which to start. Not that he realizes it, he seems blissfully unaware of the bear trap he's about to stick his face in, and has seemingly done zero preparation for this event.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, how are you?
All right, good. What is one main metric that Donald Trump has made better off since he got in office? So like an example would be GDP, unemployment, inflation, etc.
Well, right now, first off, the big beautiful bill was just passed last year and it's kicking in now, right? It's kicking in now. Okay, so we're going to now see results of that, like even the tariffs. All right, so let's do tariffs. Are you for or against tariffs?
Against the universal tariff. So what's the main metric that he made better off?
What?
What's the main metric that he made better off? GDP, unemployment, inflation? Do you have any idea?
Listen.
Oh, Dave. Dave didn't have something written down for that? In the one MAGA versus Democrats video, you didn't think that someone might ask you to name one good thing that has come from Donald Trump, the MAGA president? Such a gotcha question, I guess. Because for Dave, this was clearly just a fun opportunity to get some publicity, a few sound bites, and a way to play a few of his old hits. You know, complain about wokeness and how it's actually the left who are the racists and so on.
Based on demographic factors.
Yeah, we could basically
So
go with that.
wokeism is intersectionality.
It is a piece, intersectionality is a piece of wokeism if you're going to group people on these immutable characteristics, and then you decide based on this, we got to put black people up here, we've got to put white guys down here, gays are going to be above the straights, trans will be above the gays. You have this endless hierarchy.
Sure, man. That's definitely what's happening. It's actually a whole algorithm where we take how black or gay someone is and then multiply it by their blue sky follower count. This is that very childlike idea that if you talk about race or the potential effects of racism, that somehow makes you the racist. Like, wasn't Colbert making fun of this idea 2 decades ago? Indeed. This is an oldie for Rubin. Here he is several years ago, whipping out the old immutable characteristics on a podcast.
The belief that they have in the collective that you should judge people by these immutable characteristics of them being black or gay or Muslim or whatever else it is, well, you automatically are throwing out the individual.
It's so basic. Maybe that's why that video is currently sitting at 123 views. Rubin's talking points tend to be as shallow and baseline as it gets, perhaps because he's not thinking about his beliefs very hard, and so he really thought he could go on this show and catch a few college kids in some rhetorical games and claim they got triggered and call it a day. Same old grift as ever. Unfortunately, it turns out that the people he was surrounded by happen to have existed in reality for at least the last few years. And the result is like watching Carrot Top open for George Carlin. They just aren't having it. And you can see just how outgunned he is in the very first claim that Rubin makes.
My first surrounded claim is that wokeism did more damage to America than Trump ever did.
Oh my God, man. Good night. This speaks to why Rubin and Surrounded should be a perfect match. This channel is more than happy to force people to debate basic reality and call it content. But does anyone really have to respond to that baby shit claim? The only appropriate answer is to laugh and or boo him out of the room. But this is, of course, how a lot of these people operate. They drag the discourse back so far that it halts any meaningful conversation. I'm just gonna share his other claims right away. Number 2 is, quote, if you still vote for Democrats in 2026, you're voting for broken cities, broken schools, and broken borders. Claim number 3 is, progressives push normal moderate Americans to the right. And his final claim is, the modern left cares more about ideology than reality. And I'm just not going to go through those claims and try to fact check them because they aren't really facts, but vague opinions. And even as vague opinions, they are just so obviously false. Provable by not only the last few years, but what he says in the Surrounded video. His claim that the left cares more about ideology than reality is perfectly countered by the constant fact checks that pop up during this debate, which nearly every time observe that the stuff Rubin is claiming as a fact is, in reality, not at all true. For example, here he is very smugly asserting that Iran was enriching uranium past what they were allowed to do before Trump started the most recent war.
They only got to 60% after Donald Trump left that deal and then started doing aggressive actions.
I must say, I'm impressed with your talking points. You got impressive talking points and you memorized them well. They're not correct, but I am impressed.
Okay,
first off, the Iranians admitted in the negotiations right before the war started that they were enriching past what they were allowed to. That's number 1. Number 2, you also have to go on the assumption. You also have to go. Hold on. You also have to go on the assumption or acceptance that can you agree or verify their claims?
Bam! Fact checked. He's wrong. Or rather, he's trying to claim that Iran started the most recent war by crossing a line in the sand, except Trump had already done that by abandoning the Iran nuclear deal. Point is, he's not living in reality. To the point that when he's called out on this, he goes after the people in charge of learning the facts.
Again, you are going on the assumption that you can trust these random inspectors that are going into these places.
IAEA?
Literally,
yeah. Random inspectors?
All right.
The IAEA is the International Atomic Energy.
Honestly, yeah. Why are you trusting the woke International Atomic Energy Agency, who clearly Marxistly doctored the information preemptively so as to make Trump look bad if he starts a war in Iran? You're not living in reality, lefties! This keeps going throughout the video. Here he is claiming that Mamdani becoming mayor of New York caused a mass exodus of rich people, resulting in a loss of tax revenue.
Since Mamdani has taken over, they have lost trillions of dollars in tax revenue, right? So the guy wants to fund big government programs, and what he's saying is, I want to tax these people more, and then he is causing them to leave. That is what people are going to do in a free society, right? We have states' rights.
Bam! Fact checked! Didn't happen. Of course it didn't happen. Here he is making up a completely fake cheese tariff claim about Canada.
What better deal did he get?
What?
What better deal did he get?
What do you mean? Several countries have already come back, and we've
any of the conditions that made the trade better off. Give me the specifics.
Canada, I think they had something like a 60% tariff on cheese, literally on cheese, that was being sold from America, from Wisconsin to Canada, and that basically is zero right now. That's one little example. I think it's zero right now.
Okay, so that's a targeted tariff, not a universal tariff. Yeah. Can you name one country that had a universal tariff on us?
Bada bam! Fact checked. No idea where he got 60% from, because it was never that. To their credit, Surrounded actually puts up these fact checks throughout, and Dave Rubin fails nearly every single one of them. He is completely removed from reality, it seems. A person in a very thick bubble he is embarrassingly unaware of. At times, everyone around him actually seems to be talking him down the way you would a confused old uncle.
What piece of legislation did he pass to open the borders?
No, it's not about piece of legislation. It's about quite
so
literally.
How do you open the borders without legislation?
You just let people through, which is exactly what we're doing.
There was no one standing at the borders. Everybody just come right in.
In many cases, yes, actually. In many cases, they were quite literally moving barbed wire fence.
Where did you get this information?
There are videos of it. Have you ever seen the video of Bobby?
Yeah, did you fact check the videos?
The border was out of control under Biden because he saw some pictures on the internet. You get it. Everyone got it, which is why the consensus was that Dave Rubin got his dick pushed completely into the dirt. Everyone saw it. Even Piers Morgan. Or rather, almost everyone saw it.
They offered nothing. And I honestly believe several of them would have killed me if given the opportunity. Anyway, for 2 hours and 55 minutes, I think I did a very nice job. I did have one blit moment where I kind of blanked on something, and I fully grant that.
Oh yeah, he did a great job debating all those lefties that wanted to kill him. Anyone with eyes and ears can watch this Surrounded video and see that Dave Rubin, objectively, did a bad job. He was steamrolled up there by people he thinks wanted to kill him? Why does he think that? Do you see the children he was debating? Coward eyes all around. So, just kidding, you're all fine. So the fact that Dave felt so threatened is something we should explore. Because again, if you watch the video, it's quite clear that nobody in it wants to kill him. They're laughing at him. He's being wrong and stupid up there. They're laughing at him. But to that point, I bet that he did feel attacked. Because another thing you may have noticed is that in those many clips, they are debating things like tariffs and the Iran war. They are not debating his flaccid claims about how wokeness is actually worse than MAGA, which is probably why things went so wrong for Dave in this video, which at times felt more like an intervention than a debate. Dave, as I said, doesn't really seem to consider his own beliefs. He very clumsily wields them like a kid who found his cool father's nunchucks. I think he has a handful of baseline right-wing talking points about wokeness and the intolerant left from 10 years ago, and fully expected this Surrounded video to be centered on that. But every single time someone sat down across from him, they completely pushed aside his initial stupid claim and tried to talk about real things. And they were not very nice to him about that. They challenged him in a very direct and blunt and sometimes, yes, asshole-ish way. And very often they were specifically trying to make him realize that the conservatives he champions are in no way his friends.
So I actually come from a Christian background. I spent a lot of my career debating Christian nationalists. And even the nicest Christian nationalists, they do want to take your rights. I spend a lot of time talking to these people, even the really nice ones. So I just want to be careful, and I guess I want to say, like, I remember when you posted about having your kids on Twitter, which congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
The comments were horrifying. I don't know if you remember, but it was Christian nationalists and Republicans tearing you and your husband down for having a child.
Well, you should also note there was a lot of love. There was an awful lot of love from an awful lot of conservatives and liberals and people across the board and everything else. The way the internet operates is people only focus on the negative. So was there a whole bunch of nasty
Which
comments?
side did it
was
come
there a
from
whole
more?
bunch of nasty?
Do you guess? Let's be honest. Let's just be honest. Which side supports
for
it
that? If you're asking me about for that specific
Democrats
post, it was
and
no.
liberals.
For that specific post, it was mostly people on the right, for sure. It was.
who are attacking you?
Yeah, I
course.
fully acknowledge that.
Of course.
Absolutely. 99% of the hate that I get is from people that are in this circle.
Sure, but it's definitely not for being gay.
What?
It's
Well,
for supporting going back to the prompt.
No.
That lady was being so very patient in trying to explain that while people on the left might hate Dave Rubin for using his platform the way that he does, the right wing hates Dave Rubin specifically for being gay, for having kids, and for just existing as he is. Rubin seems to think that most of the hate he gets comes from the left, despite the right wing having a fundamental belief system that wants to take away his rights. Why is that? Why is Dave Rubin defending a group of people who would not defend him? How is that disconnect happening? There's an answer, which we will get to after our first break. It's like our own little Surrounded. One consumer versus several ads. Who will survive?
Do you ever look in the mirror, maybe after drinking from a jewel-encrusted cup you thought was the Holy Grail, and say, wow, my skin is not what it used to be? Dark spots, lines, hair growing at an uncontrollable rate while you transform into a fossilized skeleton husk? This is what led me to GU Skincare. This is skincare made incredibly simple. Dermatologist-tested products and toner pads that only take about 10 seconds to use. No complicated 20-minute procedures. You don't have time for that. You thought you were drinking from the cup that held the blood of the Lord, and now very strange things are happening to your skin. You need results now. If you're trying GU for the first time, I recommend the Glow Up Bundle, which includes GU's best-selling toner pads and moisturizer. It's the easiest way to get the full GU routine while leaving enough time for you to escape the Temple of the Sun and gallop away through the canyon of the crescent moon with your dad, excavator friend, and a dim-witted academic who wanted to put the Grail in his museum. For a limited time, GU is having a huge deal for our listeners. Their Glow Up Bundle is already up to 45% off right now, but our listeners can get an additional 20% off plus free shipping with our code MORENEWS at JIYUskin.com. That's JIYUskin.com and use code MORENEWS for an additional 20% off. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you.
You did. You survived. But at what cost? So we were talking about Dave Rubin getting pwned like a noob on Surrounded. And one of the most obvious reasons why is that Rubin seems completely unprepared for these people to have a nuanced discussion about stuff like politics. He brought a series of vague culture war claims about the wokes that everyone kind of ignored. And I think the reason this threw Rubin off so much is because he's a man whose entire gimmick is that he turned into a conservative nearly overnight. which doesn't actually happen unless you lack a firm belief structure or knowledge of politics to begin with. For example, Dave Rubin knows that Republicans don't like regulation, so he knows he also can't like regulation, but I don't think he actually knows why. And so here he is getting schooled on the importance of regulations by the last person you want to get schooled by.
What problem would you, everything you're building here right now, right? Do you want the government to tell you how to do all these things and all the regulations that you got to have your electric thing this far from this and like all
the regulations like that for construction are important though. You do have to make sure that people don't do stupid shit.
But
make sure you
generally,
don't have a power line that's near a water line. There's a lot of.
But I would put most of that on the builders though. They want to build things that are good. Now I get it.
That's not true. Listen, people
people are going to build
corners all the time. Like you have to have regulations when it comes to construction methods, or people are going to get.
They cut corners when there are regulations anyway.
They do. They would cut a lot more if there weren't regulations.
I'm not totally.
If you go to third world countries and look at construction methods, they're fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
That's why schools collapse on kids in foreign countries sometimes. Like
little adjustment, Joe. Another reason schools collapse on kids in foreign countries is that sometimes we freedom those schools into a fine dust. Patriot rubble. But yeah, bad look for Rubin. Joe Rogan, the world's least informed man, is making a good point in that clip about why we need regulations. If Dave lost a mini debate with Joe Rogan, he certainly couldn't hold his own against these surrounded folks, who perpetually swatted away his dumb claims about wokeness and instead used their time to personally confront him about his career, which, as I keep saying, is being held together by very thin threads. Like, remember how he accidentally worked for Russia? Wow, that is something he did.
Talking about people like Joe Rogan, Bill Maher, these are people that thrive off of clicks and popularity. What's more clickbaity than I left the left? So many people get that, not just because they're getting a whole new audience in order to capitulate to, but there's also like.
So you think Joe Rogan?
There's also like a lot of like. There's a lot of like oligarchic money too that like can incentivize people to change their worldview.
Wait. That's
like Russian money.
Hold on. That's
like for people like Tim Pool or like what was the Rubin report? Did that also accept? Russian money from Tenet?
All right, I'm more than happy to talk about that. But
ooh, tasty! See, that was during his whatever claim that progressives push moderates to the right, and instead of debating that bad and boring claim, this guy just went right to the fact that Dave Rubin took money from Russia as part of a secret operation to boost right-wing influencers whose beliefs fell in line with the Kremlin's goals to weaken and destabilize the United States and reduce opposition to their invasion of Ukraine. When you think about it, for just a second, you'd think that would have been the career death for everyone involved, right? Like, wow, guys, wow, right? Game over, man, game over. Your show was secretly funded by Russia for the specific purpose of undermining America, the thing that you fucking love, Dave. Doesn't really matter if you knew it or not. No one should ever trust your opinion on politics ever again. It's like finding out that the host of a cooking show doesn't know how to cook, right? That the Russia-funded cooking show's host uses polonium in every recipe. It's weird Dave Rubin is still being given any platform at this point. It's weird he and others were allowed to move on from this. Surrounded certainly was gonna let it slide, but this fellow Beard did not. He called his ass out, and he pointed out everything I'm saying right now.
But what I do think is interesting is that this anti-woke movement that just says woke a lot and calls it an ideology, it is so easy to be ideologically aligned that Russian propagandists are like, yes, these are our people. This is how we're going to get the American people on board.
Understand?
That's more of like the issue. It's not really your fault. It's more so that like your whole ideology is like wokeness is bad.
What show did I do for Russia? What show did I do for Russia?
No, I'm not saying you did a show for Russia. I'm saying Russia saw you as a stooge who could easily say the talking points that benefited them.
But do you understand? They gave me no talking points. I did a show. It was a call-in show.
But here's what we're missing, Dave, right? I'm not saying Russia gave you a script to say. I'm saying Russia's like, yes, this is our guy. If we fund him more and we give him more influence, he's going to do it for us without even getting a script. Isn't that embarrassing?
Thank you, fellow Beard. I'll see you on Friday. And as you'll notice in that clip, Dave Rubin simply can't acknowledge or even register what Beard is saying. He just keeps repeating that Russia didn't literally give him a script, when that's exactly what he should be concerned about. That Dave Rubin, unscripted, just talking about his opinions, happened to align with the kind of propaganda Russia saw as useful for destabilizing the United States. Dave Rubin simply lacks the ability to self-reflect on that, or how perhaps by spreading the misinformation he constantly spreads, he is actually undermining the progress of this country. That concept bounces off of him like a hummingbird hitting a Cybertruck, because if it didn't bounce off of him, then much like said Cybertruck, the raging persona inside would burst into flames. Maybe that's why he thought they wanted to kill him. The ego can only take so much. And they are not being particularly nice to him about this. As we keep learning, Dave really doesn't like how intolerant the left is. And I'm starting to realize that he mostly means the way they talk to him. For example, Dave Rubin super hates that elderly guy from the Majority Report, Sam Seder, to the point that he seems to freak out at just hearing his name.
Do you do like debates or conversations on your thing?
Yeah.
Would you ever debate Sam Seder?
No, he's a horrible, horrible human being. No,
well, you wouldn't debate him?
No.
But you're into like open exchange of ideas and stuff, right?
No, he's a trash human being.
Why?
No, because he's done
Shots
like
fired.
1,000 videos about me that are all nonsense. I've never even talked about him.
I think
what a boring way to, not boring, what an unfortunate way to have me walk off. No, he's like a really terrible person. I didn't get into the internet to like just endlessly destroy everybody and everything else. I like talking to people that I can have enlightened conversations with. And like some people just want endless destruction for
I think you should give Sam a chance. I think you guys would have a really good conversation.
Yeah. Oh, you're a troll. I knew something was up with you this whole time.
I'm not. I genuinely think that Sam, you would have a great conversation.
No.
Huh. Why, Dave? Sam seems fine. He's great in Bob's Burgers. He was amazing in home movies. He was superb in that clip where Tim Pool thought it was smart to bring up Thanos in a debate about politics. Could it be that Sam Seder very frequently calls you stupid on his show? Possibly because when you watch him for a while, Dave Rubin does seem stupid. Just a pretty stupid, like, boring guy. Bit of a dullard. Like, sorry, Dave. It's just like in that Surrounded clip about Russia, he really seems to not understand what they're saying to him. But you can't just call a guy stupid either, I guess. That's rude. Or speak loudly to him, lest he thinks you want to kill him. In fact, it seems like the reason Dave simply will not speak to Sam Seder is because years and years ago, Michael Brooks, rest in peace, called Dave dumb in the title of a video. Again, years ago. But I get it, you know, it's tough out there being so obviously stupid and sensitive about that. So I think I can help. All right, I'm very good at talking to puppets after all. If you know Dave Rubin, maybe if you're next to him in one of those popular internet cafes, show him just this part of the video, starting now. Some More News presents to Dave Rubin specifically. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. Champ. Hi. You look great. The beard looks... Listen, I heard people tried to kill you on that Surrounded video, and I just wanted to explain what happened. Specifically, I'd like to talk to you about that whole thing where you accidentally took money from Russia. And as you say, you didn't know. You simply took money from some random European financier named Edward Gregorian, who for whatever reason wanted you to just do a show that, as you seem to be implying, wasn't political, where you just talk about clips on the internet. I hear you.
I literally did a call-in show at first, so my audience just called me and asked questions. Sometimes we talked about basketball, we talked about video games. It had literally nothing to do with foreign policy. I don't think we did one show on Russia or anything else. And then we shifted the show. That was kind of boring to me, so I was like, my team 5 minutes before we go live. We'll pick viral videos, woman throws hamburger at somebody at Wendy's, and I'll respond to it. That's what we did.
It's just a clip show, like Tosh, or for the elderly, The Soup, or for the dead, America's Funniest Home Videos. I hear you, Dave, and you did not realize it was made with Russian funding by a company that was specifically trying to undermine the United States. Okay. That was probably very upsetting and embarrassing for you. I'm sorry that happened. And it was a while ago, like 2 whole years ago. I'm sure you just want to move on from that, which I totally understand. But I wanted to explain why other people aren't ready to move on, even if you didn't know it was happening. Okay, so imagine 2 rival sports teams at 2 different high schools. Let's call one team the All-American Eagles and the other team Satan, the Fightin' Satans. Now, one day, a bunch of the kids from the AV club at the Satan school, let's call that school the Crossroads School for Arts and Sciences, and evil. Let's say those AV club kids hatch a plan to sabotage the American Eagle School, and their plan is to pretend to be part of that school and hire kids from that school, kids from the theater club and cheerleading squad, to put on school shows that are secretly designed to encourage everyone in the school to fight amongst each other and get less informed so they don't focus on winning the big badminton game. Now, imagine you're one of those theater kids at the Eagle School, and you get secretly hired by the Satan School to put on a play. Even if that play isn't about badminton and you got to choose the play, it says something to people that you were chosen by the Satan School at all. The school that was specifically looking for students who would effectively destabilize and misinform the school. That means they saw you as someone to support for that goal, that your general views and natural instincts would just do that. They let you have freedom because they didn't need to give you a script. Now, you claim you were just doing this funny internet clip show and not talking about politics, but I don't know if you realize this, but the show can still be watched online. I looked it up. It was called People of the Internet. Very clever, Dave. And here's a clip from an episode titled, "Does this prove homeschoolers are smarter?"
Look, the schooling situation in general right now, and I can say this as a father of 2 young kids, like even here in Florida where we have great public schools right now. Florida used to be the joke of the country because it was thought of as where all the old people go to, is heaven's waiting room and no income tax, so there wasn't a ton of money going into the school system. Florida's completely reversed that. It's in large part because of DeSantis, but not only because of DeSantis. And we've pretty much removed the woke stuff out of the schools and all of that. So there's a lot of good things happening here. But the general idea of sending your kid wherever you are, to a state-run school to be taught God knows what by a bunch of people who are radical activists. And it's not just this one-off, like when you see the Libs of TikTok account with the purple-haired person talking about how they're queering the 3rd graders or whatever. Like that's not a one-off. That is really almost wholly infected the system.
Ah, yes. Very funny stuff, Dave. That was you responding to one of these funny clips, except the clip in question was just a kid talking about school shootings. It wasn't a kid getting hit with a hamburger or kicked in the balls by a horse or something. In fact, you even forget to laugh about the clip after the clip plays, and then you catch yourself and do a fake laugh because it's not actually a funny clip at all.
That's a good point. That is a good point.
So now that you've seen a clip from that show, the show you did, does that not seem extremely political to you, Dave? Maybe you're not talking about Russia, but you are specifically endorsing a right-wing politician in that clip. And then you go on to say that American public schools are brainwashing kids to be woke and that you ostensibly shouldn't put your kids in school. And a Russian company paid you for that. They paid for you to do that show because they specifically wanted to make shows like that to undermine America. And there you are, saying that American public schools are indoctrinating kids and encouraging people to not use them. So stay with me, Dave. Think about that. Think about the fact that Russia thinks that message is a good way to undermine America because you are encouraging people to reject education and perhaps depicting schools in a way that just maybe isn't true. After all, you say that your kids are doing fine. Have you, Dave, actually ever met some purple-haired teacher who tried to make all of her students trans? Or is that just a thing you, perhaps, saw on a video or read on Twitter? Think hard, really focus. Because even if the specific content on that particular show wasn't aligned with Russia's interests, they're clearly trying to subsidize your entire career to keep you afloat in general. Think about that. And also, maybe watch that clip again. Take your time. Perhaps it says something about your opinions and your ideology that even the stuff you consider to be non-political, casual, clip show conversation is actually deeply dogmatic talking points of right-wing politics that happens to coincide with Russia's desire to destabilize America via misinformation and divisiveness. I guess what I'm saying is, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but that was a political show that you did for Russia. And then, when you're confronted about why this happened, you explained it by saying this.
So I was reached out to by Lauren Chen, who you might know as, what's her name, Post-Millennial Online? Or
she's
something.
like the Canadian white nationalist that's Asian.
Roaming millennial. And I've known her for about 10 years.
Okay.
And we were friendly over the years, and we had agreements and disagreements, and we were on each other's shows. And she contacted me a couple of years ago and said that she had some backers that she was talking to, and she was starting a new network, and they were talking to all sorts of people. She mentioned Tim Pool. She mentioned a whole bunch of creators that you guys know and I'm sure love. But it was people all over the political aisle. She said they wanted to create a free speech network. I said to her, listen, I am extremely, extremely busy, but I would consider doing something for you as long as I 100% control it. You have no control over the content whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask for a ridiculous amount of money because I don't have time.
Oh, so you did it for a lot of money. Yeah, we know, bud. See, that's part of the problem, sport. A lot of people, champ, when asked to do a job, slugger, will often look into that job like a reverse job interview. You can Google them, Tiger, and see what they've done in the past, dumbass, and so on. But you didn't do that. And you agreed to something for the money, and because all your friends did it too. And some of those friends likely knew this was for Russia. Now think about that for a second. What does that say about your friends, Dave? If all of your friends or peers also took money to do this propaganda, maybe there's something fundamentally wrong with the industry you are in. And if the things you just casually say happen to align with this propaganda, that also seems concerning, doesn't it? And maybe, in the future, you shouldn't just blindly agree to something for the money or publicity. Maybe you should think about the words coming from your mouth, because when compiled into sentences, words mean things. Seems like an important lesson considering you didn't learn it for the Surrounded video either.
I kind of didn't want to do it because I've just been through enough versions of the internet and dealt with the hate and the whatever. My team really wanted me to do it. I was like, you know what? I'll give it. I'll do it. Whatever. It's not a big deal.
Dave Rubin. He'll do it. Whatever. It's not a big deal. Slap that on your business card, buddy. Look, I get it. We need money. Beards aren't cheap. I mean, yours looks like it might be, but maybe in the future, you should think about what these career choices say about you. And perhaps you'll realize that's why other people are so angry with you. All right. Get out of here, you scamp. This has been Some More News Presents to Dave Rubin specifically. Hey, buddy. Is he not watching anymore? You're sure? God, what a fucking idiot that guy is. Like, Did you see that Tenet Media clip? What a liar. Holy hell. Oh, my show wasn't political. Shut up, Dave, you fucking dumb liar. Your beard is terrible. I'm sorry you all had to see that. The reason why I did that is because you might be noticing that a whole lot of Dave Rubin's talking points seem to be that he personally experienced something and is basing his political beliefs off of that one experience. Like this.
Well, you could look at corporations. I mean, all these corporations that have their DEI stickers. I was just on a Delta flight. They still have their DEI sticker on there.
DEI is not inherently a bad thing. Why would diversity ever be a problem for anyone?
You see, DEI is out of control and hurting America because Dave Rubin saw a sticker on his flight to this Surrounded shoot where he had to stay in Los Angeles, which he has decided is a broken city. Let's hear why he thinks that.
I would say I'm very glad that as a trans person you feel safe here. You should feel safe, and I treat anyone that treats me with respect, you're going to get respect out of me. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad to hear it. I assume you've been to West Hollywood, right?
I have.
I used to live in West Hollywood, pretty close to the Abbey, and I left about I moved to the Valley before that, but I lived there for about 6 years. And the 6 years that I lived there, from about 2013 to 2019, it was pretty clean and it was pretty safe, and there weren't drug addicts and homeless people all over the place.
Because despite having lived there for years without a problem, Dave Rubin recently saw homeless people during his 2-day hotel stay. No statistics, just what he saw from his window right before he came here. Like a baby. A lazy baby. And also, the actual key part of that clip I want to really talk about is how he opens his statement, which is by saying to that lady that he's going to treat her with respect because she treats him with respect. On its face, that's a perfectly good thing to say. And in fact, to his credit, Rubin is extremely respectful toward everyone in this Surrounded video. Even the assholes. But as he starts to talk about his experience with certain right-wing figures, you realize that this exact philosophy has sort of drowned out any other common sense. That this quest for civility and personal respect has superseded all other ideology or decency or logic or reason. To the point that Dave Rubin, who seems to base his politics off of whatever is immediately in front of him, would allow himself to be eaten alive if the lion was nice about it. We're going to talk about that after you get eaten alive by these ads and let them swallow you like a snake. Ad snake! I hate Mondays. You gotta get up early, act professional, and the leftover lasagna from the weekend is all soggy. Plus, if you're of a certain age, you probably can't even have a cocktail or two on Sunday night without Monday morning hitting you like a spider you've comically squished with an extended orange thumb. But that's not a worry since I discovered pre-alcohol. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, stay hydrated, of course, and you will feel your best tomorrow. Now, I don't have to worry about Monday while I have a glass of wine and ship Nirmal off to Abu Dhabi. Mondays don't move for anyone, but pre-alcohol works overnight so you can have a real weekend and still show up. Sharp, like this is a sharp looking tie. Go to zbiotics.com and make a slash after that, and then type more news and use the code more news for 15% off. Feel your best and sabotage John Arbuckle's chances of getting a date with the vet. zbiotics.com/more news, code more news for 15% off.
You know a streaming channel has to be good when I tell you to watch it while you're literally watching something else. Isn't that wild? You theoretically could always be using the product I'm talking about while you're watching me talk, but in this instance, you can't because you're here, not on Pluto TV, but anyway, I digress. You should definitely go there instead of here eventually, not now. After we're done recording this, after you're done watching this. But soon you can go there so you can glop up, straight glop, like Top Gun, Maverick, Transformers, Rise of the Beasts, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, and award-winning films from international and art house filmmakers like Whispers of the Morning, Screams of an Afternoon, The Marriage of Maria Menounos, Golly, Fear Sure Does Eat the Soul, Eraser Butt, Why, Tu Llamas Tambien, Jules and Jim and the Clash Me Outside, How Bada Lady, 8 2/3, Yo Jimbo, G for Ginger Snaps, Betaville, My Cat is a Wife Now, Richard Gere, The Wrath of God, A Grok Work White, Last Year at Marian Alago, and Sock. Stream all the goodies after you do the goody streaming here. But do it, regardless, just go ahead and do it. Pluto TV, stream now, pay never. Finish watching this video first, though.
We're back, and that's fine. Can't be avoided. Just like Dave Rubin. Idiot, perhaps? Before our break, we were talking about how Dave seems to value outward politeness over ideology and reality. Not even civility, mind you, just being polite to him. Throughout the Surrounded video, he constantly talked about the way people spoke to him. His entire beef with the left seems to be that he doesn't like their tone. And while I'm all for being polite, even to dumb, smelly babies with bad beards, Rubin seems to value this above all else, to the point of absolute delirium.
Michael Knowles, as a human being, has been to my house, and my husband has cooked him lamb, and we have enjoyed evenings together and shared personal moments and all of those things. Now, do we agree on absolutely everything? Of course, the answer to that is no. And if Michael or anyone else was trying to lead some organization that was going to go against my civil rights, well, that is where obviously we would have our difference of opinion, of course.
So if you don't know, the difference of opinion that Dave Rubin, a gay man, is alluding to is the fact that Michael Knowles super hates gay people. Zero respect for them. Wants them to not exist. Knowles is a right-wing propagandist most famous for calling for the eradication of transgenderism and trying to spin being trans as some kind of radical ideology.
Transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology.
He's a wiener. Didn't have to show the clip. Could have just said he's a wiener with the dead-eyed smile of an actual sociopath. And like all these anti-trans people trying to reframe it as an ideology or say they just care about kids, Knowles is fully aware that this is a ruse for the right wing to slowly regress our human rights back to the 80s and beyond. Rubin says that if Michael Knowles was actively taking away his rights, he'd take issue with that. Well, guess what, Dave? Knowles is currently part of a campaign called Greater Than, which has the explicit goal of repealing gay marriage under the claim that same-sex couples shouldn't raise kids.
Marriage is actually the most basic institution of human civilization.
When Obergefell redefined marriage to include same-sex couples, it was billed as a win for adult equality. In reality, it created inequality for children.
We're prioritizing the fantasies of adults, no matter how earnestly those fantasies are felt, over the real needs and the real good of children.
Look at those blank-eyed hacks! Michael Knowles does not believe that Dave Rubin, a gay man, should be married or have kids because he's gay. Period. Knowles doesn't even think that gay marriage exists.
Legally, have gay people gotten married in the United States? Have a man and a man legally gotten married? Yes or no?
That's not possible. That'd be like swimming in outer space.
Legally,
it doesn't mean anything.
No.
Ah, yes. It's fun to play with words. What a liar. What a fraud. What a bad argument. He knows he's stupid. That's so stupid. He's a wiener. A hateful wiener. And right now, Michael Knowles is leading a campaign to try and repeal Dave Rubin's legal right to live the way he wants to. But have you considered that they had dinner together and it was very nice? Also, when asked about any of this, Rubin takes a lesson from the Mike Johnston school of deflection.
I'll just say real quick, I'm not trying to come after you. I
Yeah.
believe that you should have the full liberty to have the family of your choice.
Yeah.
But what I will say is I'm glad Michael treats you with respect individually when you guys are together. But when he goes in front of this platform and says that a video of two gay men having a child is the most disgusting thing that he's ever seen, which is a quote, you can look up the tweet. Michael said that that child is in one of the most dangerous situations he can think of, which is crazy to think of all the abusive parents that actually live in this society, regardless of sexual orientation. And you're gonna look at a happy family and say, this is disgusting. That should feel like a violation.
Okay, so I didn't see that video.
Oh, he hasn't seen it. He does this several times in this video. Rubin will say something like, well, all the anti-gay people are really nice to me personally, but if they ever try to take away my rights, I will be right there fighting with you. And then someone will tell him about a specific instance of right-wingers pushing legislation to take away his rights, and he'll be like, oh, well, I mean, I haven't heard about that. And then his eyes will just glaze over and he'll tuck that memory away in the forever hole, right there next to the Russia stuff. Then he'll go off about how concerned he is about trans kids being castrated without thinking for a moment about where he got that information, or that the only other people saying this are openly calling for the eradication of trans people and the end to gay marriage. But Dave's defense is that they aren't literally doing that yet.
Have we whittled this down to some people make jokes about people? They do. They make jokes about people.
They're not just joking. They're trying to legislate against our very existence.
But again, if you...
your friend Michael Knowles at CPAC said that we need to eradicate transgenderism in society. That is a direct threat to me, my neighbors, my friends, and family.
Okay, I promise you this. I promise you this. If Michael Knowles or anyone else starts pushing for legislation that will jail you or stop you from getting a job or any of the other freedoms that we all enjoy, I promise you I will be on your side of that.
Holy shit, man. Holy wet and dry shit. Dave, what's it gonna take? Do you hear yourself? It's like saying, well, sure, that guy is holding a gun saying he wants to shoot you and me, and he is funded by billionaires for the purpose of allowing him to shoot more people. But let's not make a big deal out of it, and I swear I will have your back if he pulls the trigger. He's being so polite, you know? Like, Dave, are you stupid? Or just a liar? Read a fucking history book, assuming you can even retain information, you goldfish-brained jackass. I just want to roll up this paper and just... Hold on. Some More News presents to Dave Rubin specifically. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. You look great. Cool hair. I also like Duke Nukem. So I don't know if you realize this, but a lot of your friends and colleagues hate that you're gay. And it doesn't have to be like that. Most people have friends who don't want to take away their civil rights or refuse to your face on camera to go to your anniversary party because you're gay.
So so if you wouldn't bake me a cake, that's okay. And now, because it's 50-50, I can't bake you a cake, which David's an incredible chef, and he would have done it kosher, the whole thing, man.
Now I feel bad.
He would have done it for you.
You got me this close.
Putting that aside, you can't have David's kosher cake now. If we were having an anniversary party, would you come? If I was inviting all the crew that we all know, and we were just an anniversary party, we're just having a party, and I'll even throw in some kosher food for you to make sure you don't have to bring your own food.
You know, honestly, I'd have to think about it. I'd have to think about it in the same way.
So that's interesting to me, because that's a different thing.
Well, not really.
Wait, is your husband named Dave too? That is adorable, man. Seriously, that is too much. But Dave, both Daves, it is not normal for someone to refuse to attend a party because of the way that you were born. Remember how you were mad at progressives for ranking people by their immutable characteristics? Well, that's literally what's happening there, right? Ben Shapiro, your super cool colleague who you share many ideological beliefs with, won't go to your house and hang out with you because of your immutable characteristics. He has ranked you lower than him because of those characteristics. Just like your buddy Michael Knowles is making a campaign literally called Greater Than, Remember how upset you were about the left doing that, rating everyone and such.
And if you're going to group people on these immutable characteristics, and then you decide based on this, we got to put black people up here, we've got to put white guys down here, gays are going to be above the straights, trans will be above the gays, you have this endless hierarchy.
Dave! That's what he just did. Your buddy Ben just grouped you based on your immutable characteristics and put you way down below him. That's not normal. It's actually very rude and f***ed up. Just because he says it politely to you in a room with nice chairs doesn't make it civil or good. See, it's not your fault that no one taught you this, but sometimes the tone in which someone is speaking doesn't actually dictate whether or not they are being cruel to you. Someone can say very cruel things in a very polite way, and that doesn't make it polite. Like if I said, I like the way your beard makes me think better of my own beard. Thank you for that. It's a good example. On the other hand, someone might be trying to do a nice thing for you, but not saying it in a nice way. For example, if someone calmly tells you that they want to tie you to the train tracks, are they being nice or not? And then, when you get on those train tracks, if someone yells, hey, get off those train tracks, you fucking donkey, do you think that person is being kind or rude? See, just because they raised their voice and called you a name and the other person didn't, doesn't mean the louder person wants to kill you. And in fact, it's the opposite. See, sometimes this desire for civility and calm debate, the lust to agree to disagree, it isn't actually productive or wise when the other side doesn't think you should be free or happy or exist. Does that make sense, Dave? I'm glad we could talk it out. Okay, get out of here. Tell Dave I said hi and would absolutely try that cake. Some More News presents to Dave Rubin specifically. Hey, buddy. Fucking dipshit. Unbelievable. Stupidest man in the fucking world. His name is a sandwich, by the way. Anyway, perhaps there's a secret reason that Dave Rubin is so seemingly dense about the obvious. It might be hard to grasp, but there's a hidden clue in one of the clips. See if you can spot the hidden clue.
I'm going to ask for a ridiculous amount of money because I don't have time.
Did you catch it? Did you catch the clue? Perhaps, just perhaps, Dave Rubin doesn't actually care. And maybe it's all just a big grift. Not just from Dave Rubin, but all of them. Maybe Ben Shapiro actually has no problem going to Dave's anniversary party, but has to stay in character. I mean, he's kind of a stay-at-home dad in real life. I bet Ben makes a great cake, honestly. He'd make it the shape of a violin or like a dry vagina or something. Can probably use the same mold for that, actually. There is, for a lot of these guys, a disconnect between the ideology they spew and the actual way they live. Like how these guys love to take these rustic photo shoots as if they're salt-of-the-earth country boys. But like, guys, Tucker. Your name is Tucker. You're a Swanson dinner heir. Most of these guys lived in big, godless, lefty cities for a lot of their lives. A few of them bounced around to networks they now claim are leftist propaganda. I'm not saying they're secretly progressive at all, but rather, in order to actually function in society or in an industry, you have to just get along with people. It's the same way these tradwives will go on TV and say that women shouldn't have jobs or opinions, while they are literally doing this as a job. It's an act. And it's why the things Dave and the right wing preach are pretty fucking insidious, because they're advertising a way of life that is inherently impractical, often detrimental to follow, which is why they don't actually live like that. They talk about how all movies and TV shows are woke and say they wouldn't go to gay weddings and that men should be the breadwinners. And then the cameras turn off and they quickly go back to the same society we're all in. Dave Rubin politely goes to PTA meetings and I'm sure gets along with everyone. He probably never complains about wokeness in schools at the parent-teacher conferences. If a teacher has purple hair, he probably compliments them because he's playing a character. He's just doing a job, sometimes for Russia. As I keep saying, I don't think he thinks about the ideology he's slinging. And so it doesn't actually occur to him that the propaganda and lies he's saying hurt people, real people, like himself and his husband and his kids. It doesn't occur to him that there are people in high-ranking positions who do think this stuff and are acting on it. These are people in power with a real political project, with well-documented opinions about people like Dave. Yet he thinks they're not pursuing the things that they say they want to pursue. He seems to not understand that his buddy Michael Knowles isn't playing make-believe the same way that he is. And Dave Rubin is playing make-believe, more than some of these other freaks. Remember how he left the left? Well, before he did that, Dave was an aspiring stand-up comedian who was interning at the fucking Daily Show. As he himself notes in the Surrounded video, he lived in West Hollywood trying to make it. Like all these dips lived in Tinseltown at one point trying to make it. But unfortunately for Dave...
This is my impression of Yoda having sex. Yoda having sex.
Yeah. It's fine, I guess. Comedy is hard, folks, but perhaps he didn't have that magic. I tried to find more stand-up footage, and there's this 3-minute YouTube clip where he spends the entire time doing crowd work and never gets into the actual routine.
All gay people, is everyone here gay? You're gay, doing it. Do we have some lesbians? I sense lesbians in the crowd. And straight people, I should ask about the... Do we have any gays in relationships, or as I like to call them, gays from the future? By a show of hands, how many of you have televisions?
What are you doing? A survey? It's almost like he's performing a meta bit where the joke is that he never starts. Like he got up there and realized he didn't write any jokes and had to stretch for time. It's weird, honestly. So Dave didn't make it in comedy. He didn't get to be a voice on Bob's Burgers like his father did. He had to settle for the new norm. But like all these right-wingers, had he made it, gotten that comedy special or that screenplay made or that acting career, he would have never left the left. And Dave Rubin knows this, which is why he can be friends with someone who fundamentally hates who he is. Because to him, it's all just show business, right? It's who you know, who's nice to you. This resonates throughout his entire career, all the way back to his explanation for why he left the left.
I was on air one day at the Young Turks. There were about 4 hosts doing this big panel thing. And they would always basically, the whole show was devoted to what did Fox News do and how can we critique them because we're going to get a lot of clicks off of Fox News. So they're playing a clip where my good friend, and I'm guessing you know him, David Webb. You must know David, right? Or at least have crossed paths with David over the years. Yeah, David's a great guy. He happens to be a conservative who is black. And he was guest hosting for Hannity one day. And they're playing a clip of him. And what they did not know, well, I'll tell you this way first. So they play the clip of him, and it doesn't even matter what he was saying. They immediately come back from the clip, and they're calling him an Uncle Tom, and he's a sellout, and, he just wants money, and how could a black person say this, blah, blah, blah. What they did not know is that years before, I had a show on Sirius XM, as David still has a show on Sirius XM. I was a lefty at the time. He was on the right, but I bumped into him in the hallway. This is a totally true story. Bumped into him in the hallway one day. We started talking. He said, hey, why don't you come on my show? We'll do something once a week. We'll just talk it out, see what happens. We did that for probably 2 years, once a week. We became very good friends. We would go downstairs after the show to Del Frisco's, have a steak and some whiskey. And that's when I was a lefty. He was on the right. We didn't agree on anything, but he's become a very, very close friend of mine.
Of course, Dave Rubin left the left, at least in part because some lefties were mean to a guy he knew, a work buddy, which seem to be his only buddies these days. And in fact, Rubin now has a podcast called Actual Friends, where he seems to want to prove that he has, actual friends. It always comes back to this idea with him, because to him, ultimately, the words don't matter. It's just a gig. That's why a person can leave the left, because they think progressives are rude or annoying. It's how they can completely uproot their beliefs and turn on a dime, because it never actually mattered in the first place. He's just at work, doing what he needs to do to provide for his family. Just like a lot of these grifters are at work. Just like the people who make Surrounded don't really care what happens in these videos as long as people watch them. But when you put yourself in a room with people who actually give a shit, you're gonna get eaten alive, because it turns out that this stuff actually does matter. So yeah, of course he's gonna lose that fight. In fact, one of the most unique things about Dave Rubin is how little he seems to try. His most extraordinary quality is how ordinary and low effort his arguments and talking points are. He is barely trying, folks. He seems to base his observations on stuff he just saw on the plane or at a hotel, a video he watched, a broad talking point, which says a lot about him and the people who watch his show and the grift he is doing. He's just up there making the right-wing equivalent of dangling car keys. He's doing this. But as a political pundit. And the worst part is, that's not even what Yoda sounds like when he has an orgasm. You idiot. You complete fucking idiot, Dave Rubin. What the hell? You're so stupid. He croaks. It's a croak. He's a swamp creature idiot. He makes high-pitched croaks when he orgasms. High-pitched, increasingly faster croaks until one long croak when Yoda comes. You'd know that if you read anything on my Tumblr. Dave, come on. Fun fact, Dave blocked me on Twitter 8 years ago, I think, because I shared with him a little video that we made here about how Tucker Carlson is a liar and a fraud and you shouldn't trust him. And he blocked me when I told him that he shouldn't trust Tucker Carlson. And now he's out there being like, oh, this Tucker, he's betraying everybody. And it's just really funny. Dave, you should have listened to me then, and you should listen to me now, because I was so nice to you in this video. You f***ing idiot. He's just so stupid. And I know I ruined this by being mean to him throughout the video. Even if he watches this, he'll be like, I'm not going to respond to any of that. I can't internalize that. My brain will break. I'll die inside. But God, he's just so... Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to like and subscribe. We've got a podcast called Even More News. It's on this channel twice a week if you want to watch it on YouTube. And if you don't, go to your local podcast store and it is there on the shelves. You can listen to this show, Some More News, as a podcast if you prefer to go out to your local brick and mortar podcast store and pick what it is out on the shelves. But also, you just watched it, so listen to it again. Watch it again. Leave a comment. Check out our patreon.com/somemorenews. Check out our merch. It's got merch stuff on it. Warbo's there, and he is so much smarter than this stupid fucking moron Dave Rubin. Oh my God. Oh, made me appreciate Warbo. That is wild. Oh well. Hi, Dave. Thanks for watching.